Hi, folks. I'm Dr. Russ Wallers at Ball State in the Department of Marketing. We are going to discuss in overview a section on market information systems and marketing research that corresponds to this week's learning module. After reading the material assigned for this weekly module, hopefully you'll be able to distinguish between marketing information systems and marketing research, understand the scientific approach to marketing research, explore methods for collecting secondary and primary data, and we'll examine the role of observational, question-oriented, and experimental methods in marketing research. So that's our roadmap. One of the questions that comes up from time to time is who does marketing research? Most firms of any size at all will have their own marketing research department responsible for collecting marketing data. Smaller firms, too small to justify having their own internal staff, will usually contract that work out. So there are a lot of independent firms that do marketing research for smaller firms, and both for small, medium, and large firms, there are some research topics that are very specialized, and in those cases, firms will often use the work of outside consultants. Here's an example of an ad for a company called Focus Vision that does focus group work. That's an example of a type of research that's often contracted outside. So there are a lot of different types of firms that do marketing research work. The corporations internally and marketing consulting firms that specialize in various aspects of marketing research. Marketing research requires cooperation in the company between users and um, the research staff. In a lot of cases, the users don't feel that the marketing research personnel understand their business problems, and likewise, sometimes the marketing research people are concerned with the research techniques, and they don't really feel that the users of the information understand their approach to marketing research. That's kind of an ongoing problem, and the issue has to do with effective cooperation and communication between users and those inside the company that do marketing research. So that's often a continuing issue. I think our text points that out and develops that topic. So collaboration is absolutely necessary. Marketing information systems are systems that are set up to provide ongoing flows of information for marketing decision making and make that available to the marketing manager. Over the past couple decades, we've seen significant advances in marketing information systems. We have better hardware, better software, so that the user is getting more and more information easier and faster than at any time in history. Um, a lot of firms will set up an intranet, which is an internal internet-based system to provide for confidential information used internally. And one thing in designing marketing information systems is that the marketing managers that are using the information need to be involved in the design of the marketing information system so that the information that they need is available when they need it. That's a very crucial part of this process. Here's a schematic that shows the uh, elements of a typical marketing information system. Uh, and you might notice in the horizontal uh, row, there is a block called the database or data warehouse. That's basically the hub of the marketing information system. Uh, Information flows into that data warehouse from a number of sources: marketing research, internal company data sources, and also external data sources. And the database serves as a hub for developing decision support systems and different types of marketing models that generate useful information to the marketing manager. So that's kind of the flow. There are a lot of marketing job opportunities in the database area. Data mining, very useful in customer relationship management types of decision support systems. So that's kind of a useful schematic of a marketing information system. The main issue is that marketing information systems are pre-designed, pre-established, ongoing systems, typically driven by technology, to provide marketing managers with a constant flow of information. Marketing research, on the other hand, deals with ad hoc problem solving. And one of the issues that the text develops is a discussion of the scientific approach to marketing research. And it all starts with defining the problem. Many times a internal user within the company will bring a problem to marketing research and discuss the problem. And one of the issues there is to properly identify the underlying problem. And one of the pitfalls is sometimes symptoms are mistaken for the underlying problem. In a lot of cases, when marketing managers talk about a decline in sales being the problem, that's a problem, but that's usually more symptomatic of something that underlies the decline in sales. So defining the problem is a key step. Secondly, a situational analysis is often undertaken to clarify the problem, and sometimes that provides a solution in itself. If that doesn't provide a solution, then obtaining problem-specific data through some type of data collection is in order, followed by interpreting data and applying that data to solving the problem. So that's basically the scientific approach. And notice there's feedback throughout the process. And one of the issues is that we try to identify the problem and come up with a solution as early on in the process as we can to provide for quick solutions to problems at the most in the most efficient manner. Keep the cost down. Marketing research is fairly expensive, so we want to use the information at hand if we can to identify the solution to the problem. If that doesn't happen, then we have to go out and collect data. So the idea is to follow this 5-step scientific approach to serve as our roadmap. Defining the problem is a critical step. Finding the right problem level and properly identifying and distinguishing between the problems and the symptoms that point to the problems. And most research projects should start also with setting research objectives to guide the research as the research progresses. During the situational analysis, the researcher typically looks at information that's already available, and sometimes that's enough in itself to solve the problem. In many cases, a lot of the information is already available inside the company. Could be sales records, could be accounting data, whatever. Situation analysis also helps educate the researcher to clarify the research and help bound the problem in the overall research design. So the situational analysis is a critical step. There's a distinction in marketing research between secondary and primary data. Secondary data is useful for situational analysis purposes. And in a nutshell, secondary data is data that's already been collected for perhaps another purpose that can be used and adapted to our research problem. The secondary data sources may come from inside the company, or they may come from outside the company. An example of inside company secondary data may be company sales reports, previously conducted marketing information studies, anything that comes out of the accounting department, perhaps. Outside company sources of secondary data may include reports gathered over the internet through government reports, trade association reports, and so forth. In a lot of cases, secondary data is not sufficient to solve our marketing research problem, so we have to resort to collecting primary data. And primary data takes two general forms, either data collected through observation or data collected through questioning. These are some examples shown on this slide of primary data sources. Observation may be scanner data from the supermarket, website analysis, tracking users' clickstream behavior on the web is an example of just observing how people progress through a website. Questioning involves personal interviews, focus groups, which is a type of group interview, online surveys via mail or phone, so forth. So those are the different examples. Secondary data, again, is data that's already been collected for another purpose that we might be able to use. Primary data is data that we're collecting for our specific marketing research project. And the cardinal rule in marketing research is to look at secondary data sources first, because if the secondary data is available, it's likely to be quicker and much more cost efficient to use than having to collect primary data. So use secondary data first, and then if it's not suitable or it's not available, then resort to primary data collection sources. There are a ton of private sources that secondary data may be purchased from. Here's an example of an ad by the Simmons Group. They sell all kinds of secondary data. A lot of syndicated services provide a wealth of information used in marketing research. The text has an interesting discussion on that issue. The bottom line in using secondary data and considering the appropriateness is, does it pertain to the problem, and is it timely, and is it of sufficient quality? But if it meets those criteria, secondary data provides a lot of information for very little money, and it's quick. And it often points the need to where additional information is needed, and that's useful in developing a full-blown research proposal in marketing research. If secondary data is not sufficient to solve our problem, then we often resort to collecting primary data. And once again, the two primary generic methods for doing that is through observation or questioning the consumer. Focus groups is a technique used in marketing research extensively, which involves, in effect, a group interview. Sometimes we can get people together in a group setting and toss around a market research question that gets people to open up, and often serves as a way to help us get enough information to maybe design a questionnaire later. Sometimes the focus group helps us clarify the issues that we're dealing with. So it's a very commonly used marketing research technique. There are firms that specialize in conducting focus groups that can be hired to do just that. There's a difference between using qualitative data and quantitative data. If we get involved in doing survey research, we're often using structured questioning, and that gives us much more objective results than using qualitative, open-ended type questions. So quantitative research involves using structured response type questions that can be summarized numerically, and that's often much faster to analyze and summarize. And it also lends itself to statistical analysis, which qualitative data often does not. In terms of collecting primary data, I'm sure we're familiar with most of these techniques. We can use mail surveys. We can use online surveys. Right now, online surveys is the most popular method for collecting survey data. We can use telephone surveys, and we can also use personal interviews. Each of these techniques has its own pros and cons, and be sure to look that over in the text. Um, as an example, personal interviews allow us to probe and go into great detail when we ask questions of respondents. The other side of the coin is it's very expensive to collect data that way. Online questionnaires are very quick and very cost effective, uh, but don't allow us to do probing in real time. So there's all those issues that are developed in the text. Observational data collection is used quite a bit, used a lot in advertising research. Uh, it's used in website analysis. A lot of times when the website is set up to analyze the user's clickstream sequence, we're basically observing the way the consumer goes through the website. And that helps the marketer uh, design efficient websites that get the information of use to the consumer. We've all gone through the supermarket and had our groceries scanned. So checkout scanners uh, basically is a observational technique that measures actual in-store behavior in a very efficient way. And some companies also use consumer panels to draw observations from customers and so forth. So there are a variety of ways to observe behavior. Another example of a quantitative approach to data collection involves setting an experiment up. This is an example of a test where we may want to compare two different advertisements. Maybe the copy is different in advertisement 1 versus advertisement 2. So we can select a sample of consumers, subject half of those consumers to ad 1, subject the other half to ad 2, and then analyze which of the two ads is the more effective. We'd have to come up with a way to measure that, maybe some type of recall measure or arousal measure. So let's say that we have some measure that indicates that ad 1 yields a response of 3.2 and ad 2 yields a response of 4.6. That would suggest that ad 2 is more effective in that there's a difference between the two ads. And statistically, the question would be, is that difference significant? Or is it due just a sampling error? So those are the kind of experimental designs that we use quite a bit in marketing, where uh, we manipulate a variable of interest and measure the response across different groups. We do that a lot in market testing, where we'll put a product in two different stores at different prices and then measure the result. Here's an example of just doing a crosstab to analyze the data on household income and broadband internet service in the home. This could have been generated from an online survey where consumers were asked to indicate their household income category and whether or not they have broadband internet service. And if you've taken a statistics course, you could put together a contingency table and run chi-square analysis on the frequencies in this table. In this data, it looks, I really haven't studied this in detail, but it looks that the two variables of interest, household income and broadband service, would be positively correlated. Higher income groups appear to have much more higher frequency of broadband internet use. If we want to test this out statistically, we could run a chi-square test. So this is an example of the type of data interpretation that's done in market research, which requires a basic knowledge of statistical analysis. When we do deal with data in marketing research, there are a couple issues that are of interest and important issues. Uh, we often deal with samples of consumers, and a sample is basically a subset of an overall wider population that we are interested in. Maybe the population is the entire market for a particular product, and we might be doing an attitude study, so we select a smaller sample and question that smaller sample because it's quicker and much more cost efficient. And then we look at the results from the sample and then draw inferences regarding the population. And the question always is, how representative is that sample in representing the population? So those are some statistical questions that we face in marketing research. Validity has to do with whether what we're trying to measure really measures the concept that we think we're measuring. And confidence intervals has to do with whether we're measuring the variables of interest in a statistical way that results in some precision. So when you read this material over in the text, make sure you focus on these terms because they're central issues in marketing research. At the end of a marketing research project, when we think we have developed a solution to the problem, it's really important to distinguish between drawing conclusions regarding interesting tidbits and research artifacts versus the real issues that the problem is related to. Marketers need to have information that they can make decisions on, and there's a lot of information we could gather. The question is, what do we need for decision making? If marketing research has any value at all, it has to have actionable implications. Marketing research results that don't lead to applied implications really have little value, and they have to apply to strategic planning and strategic marketing decision making. So those are, again, some issues. We've just scratched the surface. Those are some of the key ideas in this chapter in our text. So make sure when you go through that you focus on the key terms shown here. And again, these are always useful for study purposes. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief discussion. Be careful out there, and we'll see you online again soon. Thank you.